Right now, millions of young people around the world are seeing China in a completely new light. They're seeing it through the eyes of a young American man called IShowSpeed, otherwise known as Speed, or in Chinese, Jia Kange. In fact, if you keep watching to the end, I'll tell you why he's got that name in Chinese and what are the implications for this young man coming to China. Hello everybody, my name is Toby. Welcome back to the channel. This, of course, is Toby's Takeaway here in China. Today, I want to talk about this young man who I think is only 20 years old, who's got a huge following all over the world. But then what's happened now is he's travelled a lot around the world to watch football and to do other things. And now, for this last week or so, he's come to China. And I believe it's his first time in China. What does it mean for China and potentially for the rest of the world? Well, let's talk about it now. Well, first of all, it's a big deal because he has so many followers and he streams pretty much every day for hours on end. So you're getting a lot more people, and especially young people, seeing China through his eyes, being able to go wherever he wants to. So far, I've seen him in Shanghai and in Beijing, and now I believe he's in Shaolin as well, so the home of Shaolin Temple and the Kung Fu masters over there. And it's uninterrupted streams. So to get back to that point, it's not edited, it's not censored, uninterrupted streams. And there are two important things about that. One, an accusation against China, and often people like me who vlog from China, is that somehow it's censored or edited for a Western audience. Well, that's obviously not the case when you're streaming. That's the first point. I think a really, really important point, because his viewers are, for the most part, young people, are seeing the real China. So you can't put that negative spin on that maybe other media outlets or other influencers might do. And the second point is this. Of course, so far he's been really, really positive about China. At least what I've seen in the videos and the streams has been really positive. Why? Because he's being paid by the Chinese government? I very, very much doubt it. I think he's being positive because of what he's actually seeing. He's seeing China, for example, in terms of streaming, with incredible network coverage. So your 5G. So far, he's been surprised that he's been able to stream for such a long time without interruption, and that going through the tunnels on the train system, he's also had coverage. I think, in fact, I saw a clip where he said, guys, going to go through a tunnel now, so probably going to cut out. But it didn't cut out. So that's another big thumbs up for the Chinese infrastructure. You see a lot of these videos from China where people really compliment and are very positive about the infrastructure. For example, the high-speed railways and the internet coverage that goes along with that. But I think it's different when you see a man that isn't so closely attached to China. I mean, when I'm positive about China, you sort of expect it. Most of my coverage, most of my videos are about China, and I am positive about China because there are really positive things going on here. Of course, there are bad and negative things here, and I will and have done and will make videos about that stuff. But someone like Speed, who has no attachment to China, no reason to be positive at all, coming here and complimenting China, well, I think that makes a really big difference. So before Speed came to China, he had at least two big interactions with China, or sort of Chinese culture. The first one is a pretty famous song here in China that has a very catchy chorus, but the chorus, at least in Chinese, sounds like a racial slur for black people, so basically the N-word. He did this whole reaction video to this song, went absolutely crazy, thinking it was actually very amusing. He's a very, very entertaining person, full of energy. So that was the first connection with sort of Chinese culture, a song. But I should say that Chinese song has nothing to do with racial slurs against black people. In fact, in Chinese, when you say the word that, as in that over there or this over here, so naga, nega, that's what it means. It basically means that here. It's also used like a nega. It's like that, but it's certainly not a racial slur, at least not in Chinese. And the second was this, and I saw this video, and at the time, it was actually reported back in China on social media, and I think he probably got a bit of criticism, a bit of negative reaction to it. He was watching a football match, may have been during a major tournament, and he had an interaction with a supporter, and I think he said the guy was Japanese, or he said konnichiwa, or he thought he was Japanese to a Chinese guy. Now, he may have done it on purpose, or he may have done it by mistake. But I can tell you, Chinese people do not like to be called Japanese, do not like to be confused with Japanese people. In fact, in many places in China, for example here in Sichuan, it's actually a rude word to call someone a Japanese person. If you say you're a Japanese person, it's like swearing someone. It's like, it's rude. So that was the two instances I'd seen of Speed sort of interacting with Chinese culture. But now it's the first time that he's actually coming to China, so he gets to see it for the first time, and he's really, really popular. He's come to China, so he's saying lots of positive stuff about China. He's a young guy, he's full of energy, so he's getting a lot of praise on Chinese social media. In fact, I think he just opened a Douyin account. So Douyin is the Chinese version of TikTok, the original TikTok here in China, and I think in 4 days he's already got over 1 million followers, something crazy. So right now China is going crazy for Speed, for Jiakange, really, really popular. And you know what? Good luck to him. He's out, he's hustling, he's working, he's streaming every day. People don't realise making videos, yes, but streaming certainly is really, really tiring. So the guy is working hard, I guess, for him, his family and all his team, and it just so happens that through it, viewers, people like us, get to see the real China. So it's a win-win. He's also got to learn a little bit and visit the sort of cultural and historical sites in China. So he went to the Great Wall of China in Beijing. Of course, it goes beyond Beijing. I'm sure you guys knew that as well, right? But he went to the Great Wall of China section in Beijing and did a backflip there. Of course, did a backflip. That's his special move. And then, as I said, he's now in the Shaolin Temple complex, where he's, I guess, going to learn some Kung Fu. Shaolin Temple, in my opinion, isn't the best place to visit, and perhaps I'll make a video about that in the future if I haven't already. It's got a lot of history and it's really, really famous abroad, but the actually visiting there, in my opinion, especially if you've got limited time in China, isn't necessarily the best choice. But he is there currently, so I'm really liking the fact that he's seeing modern China, but also the history and the sort of cultural elements of China as well. It's important for him because it's an opportunity for him to film more content, right, and to get more of a sort of market share of what is, I believe, the second biggest market in the world in terms of media consumption, and also a growing economy, of course, and I'm sure he's aware of that in the future. He's a young man, but he seems very, very business savvy. But it's also important, I think, from China's perspective. It's an opportunity to show a different section of society, the younger people, perhaps in America or in other countries, what China's really like. I saw some comments on his stream and on his videos about how he is able to access sort of external media in terms of YouTube, TikTok and Instagram, because of course here in China we're all safely behind the Great Firewall of China. There's a bit of an irony, isn't there, that he visited the Great Wall of China, did a backflip, but traditionally on a traditional wall you're not able, at least I think since 2008, you're not able to access YouTube and Instagram, Google services basically, plus TikTok. But he has been able to do so. So what does that mean? Well, that means basically that the Chinese government and the departments that run all that have either officially or unofficially allowed him to do so. The Chinese government is aware of everything you do, especially if you're a foreigner, but I think they're aware of everything you do. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm pretty sure the British government is aware of everything I do. In fact, I think recently the British government had a bit of a spat with Apple, was it? Because they wanted some backdoors, some access. I'm going to get myself in trouble with phrasing like that. Some backdoor access to some Apple apps or an iPhone or something, or an iPad. So I'm sure it's many, many governments, but certainly here in China, we are safely behind the Great Firewall. So for Speed to be able to stream on those channels, again, it's either officially or unofficially allowed to do so. But why wouldn't they? Two reasons. One, if he says anything positive about China, it's all good publicity, right? There's constantly this PR war going on between different countries, especially superpowers in terms of soft power wars. That's constantly going on. So you want your influencers, especially from other countries, going over and saying how brilliant America is. If you're in America coming over to China saying how brilliant China is, you know, China will love that. It makes total sense. But the other point is, and I want to make this point, is China's not scared now. You know, China's gone through a transformation over the last 50 years, whereby certainly in the cities, the infrastructure, the welcoming nature of its people, they weren't worried. That's the impression I get. They weren't worried about Speed going into Shanghai, going to Beijing, going into other places like Shaolin Temple and facing any kind of problems. They weren't worried about him seeing homelessness on the streets, about seeing slums, about seeing poor infrastructure, about the coverage of the phones and so on. They weren't worried about him seeing any of that. And so that's why I think they've been very open and allowed him to stream, to do all of that. Because China is now, this is a confident China. This is very different from the China even of 10 years ago, certainly 20 years ago, certainly the China of before the 2008 Beijing Olympics. This is a confident China that's really not scared to allow people in to see what the real China is. And I think it's interesting that this is happening at the same time, or around the same time, that we saw a lot of business leaders here in China. So literally there was some crossover with him and Tim Cook being in China. Apple donated quite a bit of money, I believe, to Zhejiang University. And they're both praising China a lot. Now, two Americans in China praising China at the same time as we're seeing, perhaps, in my opinion, the worst PR for America probably since Vietnam, or maybe even since the second Iraq War. Pretty much declared trade wars on their neighbours, so Canada and Mexico, also on lots of traditional allies as well. So in PR terms, America is doing an awful job. At the same time, you're getting bigger and bigger hitters in terms of media and influence coming to China. Somehow it feels more than just a coincidence. It seems like a shifting of sort of soft power. I've talked about it before in my videos. And I want to be very clear, I'm not American, I'm not Chinese, but I have great affection for both China and America. I'm certainly not one of those influencers, if I dare call myself an influencer, who, attacks America in order to praise China. You've seen those kind of videos. There's loads of them on YouTube and other channels. China's great, America's awful. I'm not one of those. But right now, America, at least PR, public relations-wise, is going through a bit of a slump. And China is doing very, very well. We're coming off the back of Nerds R2 and other soft power wins. If you haven't seen my video before about soft power wins of China in 2025, then check it out. I put that out at the beginning of this year. I've enjoyed watching him go through China. I said earlier on in the video that I'll tell you guys potentially why he's called Jiakan Ge. Jiakan means hyperthyroidism. I don't want to make a joke about that, but apparently some of the symptoms of that are sort of real bags of energy, and perhaps your eyes popping out a little bit. God, that sounds horrible. Your eyes, rather enlarged eyes, I should say. So that, I believe, is why he's been given that name. He's got a great ability to make his eyes really, really big. Don't know if this is true, but I've heard he's going to come to Chengdu, and that would be lovely. In fact, Speed, if you're watching and do want to come to Chengdu and want someone to show you around, I'd be happy to do that. I guess if you come to Chengdu, it's going to be hot pot and then the pandas. That'd be great. I'm all for more people seeing the real China. I'm all for more people seeing the real China on my channel and on any channel. But I'm guessing Speed's viewers and people who follow him are probably a bit younger than the guys watching my videos and following me. Although I'm sure you are very young, handsome and beautiful. Of course, all my followers are. Anybody who watches my videos are. Guys, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Just been wandering around Chengdu. I wanted to get out of the study. Yesterday it was almost 30 degrees and now we're down to like 10 degrees. I'm not joking. It's crazy what the weather right now. But there's a buzz about this city and there's a buzz about this country. I wanted to share it with you guys. So whether it's through me or through other influencers, do be sure to check out the real China. There's a lot of good stuff happening here, and there's going to be a lot of good stuff happening in the future. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Toby in China, aka Toby's Takeaway. That's all right. 谢谢，再见，拜拜。